our panel this year is called Achtung Baby, Cybersecurity Insights with you too, or as you would say, you too. So what we're going to talk about, time is of the essence. I think everybody knows that here. It is a battle between us as the cyber defenders, with those cyber adversaries as well. And the battle is just raging on, and we know that it's continuing. And it's becoming more and more creative. It's becoming more diverse. So we need to do the same types of things. So we're going to talk about AI's emergence, a little bit about AI, to talk a little bit about the ethical dilemmas that come along with AI, and the introduction of it from a defender perspective as well as an adversarial perspective, and obviously the unprecedented capabilities that we do have now because of AI. And we're also going to talk a little about, this is the Cyber Threat Alliance tips track. We're going to talk a little bit about collaboration and how we collaborate and work together so that we can fight together against our adversaries. So I'm Kathi Whitbey. I'm a Palo Alto Networks Unit 42 employee, and I've been there for 9 years now and been with the CTA since it began. So I'm one of the panelists.
Hello, I'm Selena Larson. I work at Proofpoint. I'm a threat researcher and mostly focus on cybercrime, e-crime, everything from large botnets to fraud and business email compromise. And one of these years, I'm going to get us to do Taylor Swift or the Spice Girls. I keep getting shot down, but it's going to happen.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Jen Miller-Osborn, currently with Netwitness, former Unit 42er, and worked a lot with the CTA when I was there. And threat researcher primarily, and my focus has historically been largely on nation states, particularly China. I'm also a Chinese linguist, so.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jeannette Jarvis. I work for the CTA, and I've been in the cybersecurity industry for actually nearly 30 years in a variety of companies and roles. I'm really happy to promote the CTA mission. My role at CTA is to recruit members, so if you're interested in joining us, please let me know. All right, I saw a hand. And I also do our marketing and communication. You know, it's really important that we celebrate the successes of the collaboration the industry brings. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the first song, and the first song is Race Against Time, and that's just really applicable to the cybersecurity industry because it is a race against time trying to stay ahead of the bad guys, and that's really what collaboration where it comes in well. Ransomware seems to be getting worse. Phishing, AI is really helping fine-tune that a lot. Business email compromise, I mean, every day there's breaches happening. And that's the beauty of the Cyber Threat Alliance. By working together, the cybersecurity industry can better protect their customers because the quicker they know about new tactics and techniques, the sooner they can put in protection strategies to protect everybody. In fact, the CTA has a program. We're a nonprofit, so this is not, I'm not looking for, as a nonprofit, it's fair to promote what we're doing. But we have a program called Early Share, and this is a program where our members actually share data on research, threat reports, etc., generally 24 to 72 hours before it's made public. So you have a chance to be very proactive in implementing countermeasures to new research that's out there and new threats that are out there. So it's a good thing.
You want to go?
Sure, so I have the next song, which would be...
Oh, not the next song yet. No, we have to talk about her song.
Oh no! I had to be the first person to mention AI. Oh man!
I can start.
No, I'll do it.
Okay.
So, I'm one of the people that is a large non-proponent of some of the way AI is currently being implemented. I do feel there are ways we can use it effectively. Doing some of that right now with my team back at work, and we've been able to automate and really streamline a lot of our workflows, which has helped us. In some cases, we've been able to cut the production time needed for certain things down like 80%, which has been crazy. But then I see the next news story about the AI yet again starting World War III and all the other things it does by itself, and I'm kind of like, I think there are a lot of ground rules and kind of ethical boundaries that maybe aren't being considered when it's being created and what some of the libraries it's using, But yeah.
I also think if we're talking about a race against time, I am much less concerned with the adversaries being able to effectively generate and create things like self-learning or AI-enabled malware that has massive amounts of destruction than I am with the amount of energy and resources that are being used to develop this technology. And I think that, we're both up against time when it comes to climate change and energy use and developing technologies very sustainably. And at the same time, having to figure out, okay, how do we make sure that we are defending against this and using it in a way that isn't poisoning the well of information and surfacing inaccurate and incomplete things in Google search, for example. And so I think us as practitioners of cybersecurity have to think of the ways that AI generated content, machine learning enabled, LLM enabled things are not only from a cybersecurity perspective, but how are they impacting our society? And thinking beyond just host-based defense or enterprise defense, but bigger picture, and us being advocates for safety and security of all aspects of the community, because it does have much broader impacts, and we are up against the clock there.
Yeah, I agree with those points. One of the other things I wanted to briefly talk about when we're talking about the race against time is the creativity and the patience that our adversaries are now showing. So take, for example, we recently were looking at it was a campaign against diplomats in Ukraine. And what was happening, basically, the adversaries, they're stepping back, they're taking their time, they're figuring out who do I want to target and what do I want to target them with. So if you're working in the State Department and you are from whatever country, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get to go to maybe another country. You're going to get to go somewhere else. And one of the things that they found was people were selling their automobiles. So a diplomat was he was going to their next place, so they wanted to sell their BMW. So they listed this BMW, they put this flyer together, the BMW is for sale. The adversaries got a hold of it. They were able to actually get exact emails of other diplomats. They targeted, I think, 18 diplomats directly. They took that flyer and they modified it so that when they clicked on the images and things like that, they were downloading malware onto their computers. But one of the things that they also did was that they cut the price of the BMW in half to make it more enticing for them to actually click on it. Oh, wow, that's a good deal on a BMW. So I'm gonna click on those things. So they're becoming creative in what they're doing in their targeting, and they're also taking their time to figure out how to target. So what is something that would be interesting to those diplomats? A really cheap BMW might be interesting to some diplomats. Another thing that we also were following recently out of North Korea. North Korea there's actors in North Korea that are actually posting fake jobs. So with a lot of people working from home and remotely, what they're counting on is people applying to these fake jobs, wanting to get interviewed. And what they're doing is they're sending, oh, wait, but you have to use our video conferencing software, so you need to download it. And what they're gambling on, I'm working from home, well, it's a little too much work for me to go boot up my own computer. I'm just going to do this interview on my work laptop. So they're gambling on the fact that a lot of these people they're interviewing are going to download that malware onto their work laptops, and now they have access to Palo Alto networks if I was the one to do that. But I haven't done it, thankfully. But, just thinking about the race against time is when we're watching the creativity and the patience and the things that our adversaries are doing, we've got to race against the time so we can figure out how we can infiltrate those types of things and start thinking like them.
Yeah, I want to say something about the jobs as well. On LinkedIn, I'm getting messages on LinkedIn all the time about these jobs, and they're not real jobs. Mm-hmm. They're bogus. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people fall for them. I know someone here attending this conference that fell for one. I do want to say something about AI and LinkedIn, though, to tie that together. Recently, LinkedIn made a change in their terms and conditions without really notifying us. Now, a lot of vendors and apps make changes in their T&Cs all the time. Do you guys all read those? Yes. You do? Good. You're rare. You're one of the rare ones. And what the change did was opt in everybody to share your data for a training model for their AI program. Now that's preposterous, right? any sharing of our data should always be opt out by default. And I'm just really worried and it really is a race against time in getting application to understand that it's opt out is a default. And it's something I'm very, very concerned about. Zoom did it as well. There's a few high profile applications that have done this recently. So we got to stay on top of these vendors.
This time.
Now.
All right. Now it's my question. So the next song lyric that we're going with is 1 minute warning. And I know for myself, this is something that I would have really loved back before, oh my goodness, before all of the 0 days started going crazy and none of us had weekends anymore, especially holidays, like forget them. There was a period of about 4 or 5 years when it was literally every holiday. It was ridiculous. And now you see that today with 0 days have gone crazy where we don't get even a 1 minute warning, we get no warning, and we maybe honestly have a minute or two to patch in some cases because of how widely they're being adopted. It's not what it used to be where 25 years ago, I could walk into a briefing with most organizations and say, you're never going to see a 0 day because you're not an interesting target to an APT. So don't worry about it, not your thing. Today, I can't say that to anyone. I can't, literally anyone. It's like, no, everyone has to be protected from it. And that's something that's a new threat landscape, really, for us. And it's an outgrowth of adversaries adapting around how good we've gotten at hardening perimeters and other things. So now there's had to be this shift. But when you couple that with ransomware, everyone's favorite topic where everyone's making a ton of money, now that it's been monetized in that way, it's much more interesting to a wider group of people. And unfortunately, that's to a lot of the defenders' detriment.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about the ransomware, the 0 day, I think we're still struggling with people to want to come forward as a victim. So shaming victims, I think people feel like they're going to be shamed if they come forward and say, oh, I was the one who clicked on this, or I was the one who did that. But I think the more that we talk about it, the more that it's in the news and people see. We do have mandatory reporting requirements in the United States. I don't know if it's the same across the board in all countries, but if you do get owned or you do get attacked, you do need to report it within a certain amount of time. So I think that's happening. And going back to the conversation from our keynote earlier, it's the transparency. It's putting all of that out there so that everyone's comfortable understanding that, like Jen was pointing out, it's not just specific people who are being targeted anymore, specific companies. It could really be anybody at any time. So we need to make the victims more comfortable in how they present that information, bring it out, and ask for that help so that they can get the help that they need.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting just both the use of 0 days from not exclusive to APT actors, but the investment in time and effort to develop and or buy exploits from the cyber criminal threat landscape. Certainly initial access brokers, we've seen that quite a bit over the last, I would say, year and a half of threat actors being able to develop 0 day to play a role in novel attack chains. So what we've seen is, at least from like the cybercrime, e-crime landscape, an investment less on the final payload, whereas in the days of Emotet, TrickBot, even QBot, really, you saw a lot of investment and time going into making very interesting, highly customized, rapidly developed malware to have really interesting evasion techniques, very interesting encryption, very interesting components of the malware itself. But the attack chain leading up to it was literally just macro-enabled documents. So it was really boring. But the shift from that working and essentially Microsoft disabling macros by default back in 2022 and into 2023 is when we really first saw it, is the focus and development on crafting Ode, buying very sophisticated attack chains and tooling. And so you see less actors paying less attention to the malware, but a lot more attention on the tooling development and the delivery of whatever the payload is. And certainly my visibility is in email, but we've seen that in network exploitation as well. A lot of different delivery from the web and potentially mobile, interesting delivery methods there. But to kind of flip the script a little bit from the 1 minute warning from a defender perspective, I think a 1 minute warning from an actor perspective is very exciting as well, because what we've seen and talked about on this talk track so far today is disruptions. And I think Endgame, Lockbit were just fantastic. And they literally gave something of a 1 minute warning to the threat actors, right? Like Operation Endgame was releasing videos and having a countdown for the actors and individuals and malware that they were actually targeting. So you see a lot more investment from public-private partnerships and law enforcement collaboration to say, hey, we have to go after, we have to chop off the heads of these snakes. And where historically it would be going after the malware and kind of like resurfacing and coming back, what's really exciting is the targeting of the actors and who's developing this and the tools that are enabling things like ransomware. They're not just going after, certain ransomware strains, but the tools that are used by a lot of different initial access brokers that are enabling the ransomware. So you have the loaders, with like QBot, Bumblebee, Pikabot, and TrickBot and SmokeLoader even, although we still see that in the landscape. But it's really cool to see them pushing back and say, hey, you have a 1 minute warning. Like we're almost on the offense now, which is very exciting.
I like to see that as well, not just for the cyber criminals, but for the nation state actors. That was something, had you asked me 20 years ago, even probably 15, 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Nope, never going to see that. And now it's like every other week. I'm like, oh, look, this is another like photo, this and this and this. And that's been fascinating with the level of transparency increasingly governments are willing to give into this activity and validate it, not just do a like, hey, trust us, we know what we're talking about. No, it's these people in this facility, they did these specific things. And I honestly love to see it, but I never would have expected that level.
Well, another interesting thing too is kind of similar to that, but if we're talking about kind of like heads up and awareness, things like vulnerability disclosure can be very, very dangerous, and you're disclosing a vulnerability alongside a proof of concept. So even just this last week with, I think it was like September 27th when Zimbra published a vulnerability in their mail servers, and within a day, it was massively exploited because there was a vulnerability that was published, a proof of concept that was, published shortly after. So you had these resources. And if we're thinking about, 1 minute warning, here is the CVE, it's going to get exploited very, very quickly. And so how we communicate that, how we're, sharing and collaborating with our partners and thinking from a defender perspective, yes, I have a proof of concept. I know how this can be exploited. Maybe I will just share that with my peers in the industry and not the public at large. Maybe not put it on GitHub or, tweet it out. But be really mindful about when we decide, like what we're disclosing and when we disclose it, because yes, it would be very cool to show that you have a proof of concept for a vulnerability. It's awesome, but like we have to be mindful of who we're protecting and how we're doing that, because unfortunately there's a lot of exploitable information out in the world, and we are just in a case right now where if a CVE gets published, it's going to immediately be exploited. So I think it's my turn for the, okay. I didn't mean to kind of just keep talking, but I was like, wait, the vulnerabilities. It's like, I had to, that was, yeah. So I think for our final song here is I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And I think that's is something that we can kind of all relate to, especially if we're thinking about it from a defense and researcher perspective. So, we keep saying a lot of the same things over and over again. We are still sort of waiting for quote unquote silver bullet, so to speak. Like that's never going to happen. And, we have to kind of be in that mindset of like, okay, we're still facing a lot of these challenges. And what I think is oftentimes a little bit frustrating is we're still facing the challenges from a decade ago. But I think we are, all trying to collaborate and work together. I think a lot of the recent efforts between private and public partnerships and information sharing have gotten a lot stronger and have improved a lot of our industry. But we are still facing these pervasive problems, whether it's ransomware, pig butchering, cyber fraud, certainly espionage, APT activity. And it comes to cybersecurity, a lot of that has to do with the people driving change and progress. And so everything from talking openly about their own experiences and having open communications, to having a variety of backgrounds and experiences, to driving better teams, these can all sort of help push us towards that goal of finding what we're looking for and becoming a much more resilient community as a whole, not just, certain software vendors, et cetera. So I'll start with Kathi, and I'm curious, how do you think that people can be empowered to really find what they're looking for when it comes to cybersecurity and the enterprise as a whole?
Well, I'll start off with a quote my grandma always used, and hopefully everyone gets it, but she would say, talk, don't cook the rice. So talk, don't cook the rice in this industry at all. So talking about it is the way that we share that information, but we've got to find action. We got to put the action behind what we talk about. And one of the ways that we've done that is the Cyber Threat Alliance. So I have thoroughly been in awe of how this organization has grown and the things that we've been able to do as a collaborative, not adversaries, but competitors. We're not adversaries. We are adversaries against each other. No, right?
Some of the sales teams might argue that. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, we've been able to, like Jeanette mentioned earlier, the early shares has been one of the most phenomenal pieces for us as a threat research team. Cisco or Symantec, somebody sees something that's going on, somebody is spoofing Palo Alto Networks, whatever, they're the first to give us a call because they know who they can talk to. They know who they can contact. They let us know. We're able to dive right into it. Maybe they're going to be publishing on something related to that, but they give us that heads up. We're able to provide our own protections in a really quick manner. And that when one of the members of the Cyber Threat Alliance publishes something, most of us can say, hey, our customers are protected too. Because we know that's the first question we're going to get from our customers. Hey, we saw Cisco, Talos publish blah, blah, blah today. Are we protected from that? And 99% of the time we can say, yep, we got that information in advance. But then we have other partnerships. JCDC is a partnership that we also are a part of. Microsoft has sharing in collaboration, and there's just a lot of them out there. So when I think of, we still haven't found what we're looking for, I think we're making big strides in it. And I think that all of those sharing relationships that we can build with law enforcement, with other organizations, with our competitors, those types of things are what are putting us above other folks. And then we also have to think about how do we get more people interested and wanting to be part of the cybersecurity fight. Everyone keeps telling us that there's so many jobs open, right? There's so many cybersecurity jobs open. So where do we find these people? And one of the things that Jen and I had the opportunity to do is we worked with the Girl Scouts of the USA, and we developed 18 cybersecurity badges from Daisies, the little 4-year-olds, teaching them little things about cybersecurity and just giving the young people the concept of, when I've done these workshops, these kids don't even know how many computers they interact with every day because they've always interacted with them. They don't even see them as computers. Whereas me, I went to college and I didn't even own a computer. So that's how old I am. But, how do we do those things? And we need to figure out that kind of stuff, get people involved at younger ages, girls code. There's lots of different ways to find what we're looking for.
So I have a probably different counterpoint of something that I would really like to see moving forward. So I exist much more in the strategic space currently with my job. And one thing that the community is doing a really good job of getting a lot of this information out there. What I feel like we're still seeing with a lot of organizations is this, what do you mean I have to spend X amount of dollars again? I spent X amount last year, X amount 5 years ago. And there's this lack of understanding that, yes, that's true, but this always changes. The fight always changes. The technology always changes. And that means this budget, this expenditure, it never goes away unless you somehow get rid of all of your computers for your business. And if you do that, that would be fascinating to talk about. But that level of investment is required, and I feel like that's something still missing at a lot of the executive levels, where there's still a lot of fight to get more budget, or complaints from the top about why are we spending all this money. And it's kind of like, well, do you want to be as protected as you can from a cybersecurity incident, or are you just going to kind of roll the dice and see what happens?
Jen, I think that's a lot of good points. And the thing when I think about people, what's the song? Find what I'm looking for. I think about the end user, and I think about what customers want. And what customers want is secure software, and they want to be protected. And I think the CISA new initiative, Secure by Design, is brilliant. Because a lot of times vendors tend to focus on new features, maybe RSA's coming up or Black Hat, and they want to release a new product and make a big bang and have a marketing campaign. Customers don't necessarily care so much about new features. They care about secure software, and they absorb so much of the cost when the software isn't secure, when something gets passed. And it's just really important that we think about what the end user needs. And I think Secure by Design is brilliant. A lot of vendors have signed the pledge. I hope they're serious, and I hope we can make a difference with that initiative. Okay, it's time to wrap up. Do you guys have any last minute comments?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say it would be really awesome if we saw any sort of effort beyond just like patting people gently on the head and saying congratulations when they say, yes, I'll do that. If we had a little bit more accountability across the industry. And I think we're moving in that direction, and hopefully we get there. But yeah, we need a little bit more than.
And I have one that kind of plays on something that you mentioned earlier about the effects this is having on the environment. As someone who is native to Pennsylvania, restarting 3 Mile Island because Microsoft needs more AI computing power sounds kind of like maybe not the best idea. But, and that's something that I don't think is really being thought about or discussed. It's like, oh, we just need it, so get more power. And it's like, yeah, remember that one had a partial meltdown? Yeah.
Kathi, do you have any last words? All right, well, I want to thank you ladies all for participating in this panel yet again, year after year. It's always bring good insight, so thank you very much. And thank you all for attending our panel. So.
Thanks.